The bullet punched through the wooden post 6 inches from Marcus Thornton's head. Splinters exploded into the hot Arizona air. The crack of the rifle echoed across the valley like thunder rolling off distant mountains. Marcus didn't flinch. 45 years of hard living had burned the flinch right out of him. 3 years in the bloodiest war this nation had ever seen. Countless nights sleeping with one eye open. A lifetime of learning that hesitation got men killed. He dropped behind the water trough, drew his Cold Army revolver, and counted muzzle flashes in the tree line. 3 shooters, maybe 4. Amateurs. A professional would have aimed for center mass instead of trying to scare him. The afternoon sun beat down on Stone Ridge Ranch like a hammer on an anvil. Heat waves shimmered off the hard-packed dirt. Somewhere in the corral, horses screamed and kicked against their enclosure, spooked by the gunfire. This was his land, built with his own 2 hands after the war, watered with his own sweat, paid for with years of back-breaking labor and sleepless nights, and someone wanted to take it from him. "Tom!" Marcus shouted. Tom Reeves was already moving. The old ranch foreman had his Winchester rifle in hand, his weathered face calm as a Sunday morning. Gray streaked his beard now, and his joints creaked in the cold, but his eyes were still sharp as broken glass. They'd fought together at Antietam, held a bridge for 6 hours against 300 Confederate soldiers with only 40 men. A few hired guns hiding in the trees weren't going to rattle either of them. "I count 4, Tom called back from behind the barn wall. 2 in the oaks. 2 behind the old mill wheel. Cover the left, I'll flank right." Marcus moved low and fast through the tall grass. Years of cavalry training guided his feet, kept his body below the sightlines. Bullets whipped overhead, kicking up dust devils where they struck the ground. He circled wide, using the natural terrain for cover. A dry creek bed, a cluster of boulders, the burned-out skeleton of an old wagon. The shooter behind the mill wheel never saw him coming. Marcus rose from the grass like a ghost, Colt already level. 2 shots, center mass. The man crumpled without a sound. His partner spun, eyes wide with panic, fumbling with his rifle. Too slow. Marcus's 3rd bullet caught him in the chest before he could raise the barrel. On the other side of the property, Tom's Winchester cracked twice, then silence. The whole fight lasted less than 5 minutes. 20 minutes later, 3 of the attackers lay dead in the Arizona dust. The 4th, a young man barely old enough to shave, sat tied to a fence post, bleeding from a shoulder wound. Marcus crouched in front of him. His voice came out flat as hammered steel. "Who sent you?" The kid's eyes darted left. Fear made his breathing ragged, shallow. "I asked you a question, boy." "Ashford." The name came out like a confession pulled from a dying man. "Colonel Ashford said if we scared you off, he'd pay us $50 each." Marcus's jaw tightened. Henry Ashford. The name tasted like copper and gunpowder on his tongue. Ashford had arrived in Red Bluff 6 months ago with a pocket full of Eastern money and a hunger for land that bordered on madness. He'd already bought up 3 struggling ranches, pressured 2 more families into selling cheap. Rumors said he had connections back east, railroad money, banking interests, political friends who looked the other way. Stone Ridge was next on his list, but Marcus Thornton didn't sell, and he sure as hell didn't scare. "Tom." Marcus stood, brushing dust from his knees. "Patch this boy up and put him on a horse headed east. Tell him if I see his face in this territory again, I won't aim for the shoulder." The kid's face went pale as milk. Tom nodded once. "You think Ashford will stop here?" Marcus looked out across his land. The sun was sinking toward the western ridge, painting the sky in shades of blood and fire. Shadows stretched long across the valley floor. "No," he said quietly. "This is just the beginning." That evening, Marcus sat on his porch cleaning his rifle when a lone rider appeared on the horizon. His hand moved instinctively to his holster, then stopped. The rider was a woman. Apache, by the way she sat her horse, straight-backed, proud, moving in perfect rhythm with the animal beneath her. Young, maybe mid-20s, with a face that showed more steel than most men Marcus had ever known. She stopped 20 feet from the porch and spoke without dismounting. "Marcus Thornton? Who's asking?" "My name is Kaya. Reverend Miller sent me. He said you might need help." Marcus studied her. The Reverend was a good man, one of the few in Red Bluff who judge people by their actions, rather than the color of their skin or the blood in their veins. "What kind of help?" "The kind that knows Henry Ashford better than anyone else in this territory." Her eyes hardened like obsidian catching firelight. "His bank foreclosed on my family's land 3 years ago, raised the interest rates illegally, forged documents to steal what we'd worked generations to build." She paused. Something dark moved behind her eyes. "My grandfather died fighting to keep it." Marcus said nothing for a long moment. The evening wind carried the scent of sage and creosote, dry and ancient as the desert itself. Somewhere in the corral, a horse snorted. Then he nodded toward the house. "Coffee's hot. You better come inside." Inside, Kaya spread a hand-drawn map across the rough wooden table. Oil lamps threw dancing shadows across the walls as she spoke. Her knowledge was precise, detailed, tactical. "Ashford has 12 men on his payroll. 6 are regular ranch hands. They won't fight unless they have to. The other 6 are guns for hire, led by a man named Silas Blackwood." Marcus recognized the name. His blood ran cold. Blackwood rode with Quantrill's raiders during the war, burned civilian homes in Kansas, murdered women and children in Lawrence. "He's killed at least 4 men since coming to Arizona," Kaya confirmed. "All of them ranchers who refused to sell to Ashford, made to look like accidents, cattle stampedes, house fires, hunting mishaps." Tom leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed over his chest. "So we're not just dealing with a greedy banker, we're dealing with a murderer." "Ashford keeps his hands clean," Kaya said. "Blackwood does the dirty work. But I have documents, bank records that prove the illegal foreclosures, the forged signatures, the falsified interest rates, everything." "Where?" Marcus asked. "Hidden in my family's old homestead, 15 miles east. My grandfather buried them in the well before Ashford's men came." Her voice hardened. "My cousin Daniel helped him hide them. He's been waiting for someone brave enough to use them." Marcus looked at her steadily. Lamplight caught the sharp angles of her face, the quiet determination burning in her eyes. "Why come to me?" "Because you're the only rancher left who hasn't backed down. Everyone else either sold or got scared off." She met his gaze without flinching. "And because I heard what you did at Antietam, you held that bridge when everyone said it was suicide. You don't run." Grandmother Ruth appeared in the doorway. 70 years old, silver hair pulled back tight, eyes keen as a desert hawk. She'd served as a battlefield nurse during the war, seen more death and suffering than most soldiers ever would. She knew survivors when she saw them. "The girl stays," Ruth said. It wasn't a question. Marcus nodded slowly. "She stays, and tomorrow we ride to get those documents." Dawn broke blood red over the desert. Marcus, Tom, and Kaya rode hard toward the abandoned Miller homestead. Their horses' hooves kicked up clouds of rust-colored dust that hung in the still morning air, like smoke from distant fires. Kaya guided them through Apache trails, paths invisible to anyone who didn't know the land. She rode like she'd been born in the saddle, rifle balanced across her thighs, eyes scanning every ridge and shadow. "Your grandfather teach you to ride like that?" Marcus asked. "My grandfather taught me to survive." She didn't look at him. "When you grow up Apache in a white man's world, you learn fast or you die." They found the homestead by mid-morning. What was left of it? The farmhouse had been burned to the foundation, Blackened timbers jutted from the ashes like broken bones. The barn had collapsed entirely, leaving only a skeleton of charred posts. Ashford's work. Kaya dismounted and moved toward a collapsed stone well at the edge of the property. Her face showed nothing, but Marcus could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands tightened on her rifle. This had been her home once, her family's legacy, reduced to ash and memory. "The documents are in a waterproof case at the bottom," she said. "My grandfather hid them before they came." Tom took position behind a crumbling stone wall, rifle ready. Marcus helped Kaya rig a rope system to descend into the well. She went down without hesitation, disappearing into the darkness. The desert was quiet. Too quiet. No birds, no wind. Just the creak of the rope and the distant shimmer of heat rising from the sand. Marcus felt the hair rise on the back of his neck. 3 minutes later, Kaya's voice echoed up from the darkness. "I have them." That's when the first shot rang out. Silas Blackwood stepped out from behind the barn ruins like a demon rising from hell. He was tall, gaunt, face scarred by old burns that pulled his skin into a permanent sneer. His eyes were empty, the eyes of a man who had killed so many times that death no longer meant anything to him. 5 armed men flanked him, spreading out in a loose semicircle. "Thornton?" Blackwood's voice was soft, almost gentle. "Colonel Ashford sends his regards." Tom had already dropped behind the stone wall, rifle trained on Blackwood's chest. Marcus stood his ground, hand resting on his holster. "Blackwood, I heard you'd slithered into town. Hand over the girl and whatever she's got in that well. Walk away, and I'll let you live." Blackwood smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. This time, counter offer. Marcus's voice was ice. "You and your men turn around. Ride back to Ashford. Tell him Stone Ridge isn't for sale. Do that, and I won't put you in the ground." Blackwood laughed. It was a dead sound, like stones rattling in an empty coffin. "Wrong answer." He drew. Marcus was faster. His bullet caught Blackwood in the gun arm, spinning him sideways. Blood sprayed across the sand. Tom's Winchester cracked 3 times in rapid succession. 2 of Blackwood's men dropped where they stood. The others scattered for cover, firing wild. "Kaya, move!" Marcus shouted. She was already climbing, the waterproof case strapped to her back. Bullets sparked off the stone well as Marcus laid down covering fire. Tom grabbed her arm and hauled her over the edge. "The horses! Go!" They ran. Gunfire erupted behind them. Bullets kicked up dust around their feet, whined past their ears like angry hornets. Marcus felt one graze his shoulder, a burning line of pain that he ignored. No time for pain, no time for anything but survival. They mounted and spurred hard. The horses screamed and lunged forward, hooves pounding against the hard-packed earth. Behind them, Blackwood's voice echoed off the rocks, raw with fury, promising death. "This isn't over, Thornton. I'll burn your ranch to the ground and everyone in it." Back at Stone Ridge, Grandmother Ruth cleaned and stitched Marcus's wound, while Kaya spread the documents across the kitchen table. The evidence was damning. Forged signatures, falsified interest rates, a pattern of illegal foreclosures spanning 3 years and 7 families. Names Marcus recognized. Good people, honest ranchers who had lost everything to Ashford's greed. "This is enough to hang him," Tom said quietly. "Not in Red Bluff." Marcus flexed his bandaged shoulder. Pain shot down his arm. He ignored it. "Ashford owns the sheriff. He owns half the town council. We'd need to get these to the U.S. Marshal in Tucson." "That's a 4-day ride," Kaya said, "and Ashford knows we have the documents now. He'll come for them. Blackwood won't wait, not after you wounded him. His pride won't let him." Ruth looked up from her sewing. Her eyes were calm, steady, the eyes of a woman who had faced death before and hadn't blinked. Then we don't wait for him to come. We make him come to us, on our terms. Marcus met her gaze. What are you thinking? I'm thinking we send word to every rancher Ashford has wronged, every family he's driven off their land, every man who's lost a brother or a son or a friend to Blackwood's bullets. Her voice hardened like iron cooling in a forge. We gather them here at Stone Ridge, and we make a stand. Over the next 3 days, riders arrived at Stone Ridge. Not many, 14 men and 3 women who could handle a rifle. But each one had lost something to Ashford: land, family, dignity, hope. Old Samuel Cortez, whose ranch had been burned to ashes while his wife watched. The widow Mary Hawkins, whose husband had died in a hunting accident the week after he refused to sell. Young Daniel Miller, Kaya's cousin, a lean young man with steady hands and cold fury in his eyes, who had survived 2 weeks hiding in the desert after Ashford's men tried to kill him. They came because Marcus Thornton asked, and because Marcus Thornton had never broken his word. The night before Ashford's expected attack, Marcus stood before them in the barn. Oil lamps threw his shadow huge against the walls. I won't lie to you, Ashford has more men, more guns, more money. Some of us might not survive tomorrow. He paused, looked at each face, saw fear in some, determination in others, hope in all. But I've been in fights where the odds were worse. At Antietam, we held that bridge because we believed in something worth dying for. Not glory, not money, just the simple idea that a man has the right to protect what's his. He drew his Colt and laid it on the table. Tomorrow we fight for our land, our homes, our right to live free on ground we've worked with our own hands. Anyone who wants to walk away, I won't hold it against you. But if you stay, you fight like the future depends on it. His voice dropped. Because it does. No one left. They came at dawn. 23 men, riding out of the rising sun like horsemen of the apocalypse. Silas Blackwood led them, his arm in a sling, but a shotgun in his good hand. His face was twisted with rage and wounded pride, a dangerous combination in a killer. Behind the riders, at what Blackwood considered a safe distance, a fancy carriage followed. Henry Ashford himself had come to watch. Word had reached Marcus the night before. Ashford had bragged in the Red Bluff Saloon that he would personally witness Stone Ridge fall, that he would watch Marcus Thornton beg for mercy before Blackwood put a bullet in his head. Pride. It made men stupid, and stupid men made mistakes. Marcus had prepared. Barricades of overturned wagons blocked the main approach. Firing positions on the barn roof gave clear sight lines across the valley. A trench dug along the north fence provided cover for the women and older men. The first wave hit hard. Gunfire erupted across the ranch like a summer thunderstorm. Smoke and dust choked the air. Horses screamed. Men shouted. Bullets thudded into wood and flesh alike. Tom took a bullet in the leg but kept firing from his position, teeth gritted against the pain. Old Cortez went down, clutching his side, then pulled himself up against the wagon wheel and shot the man who'd hit him. Daniel Miller fought beside his cousin Kaya, the two of them moving in perfect coordination. Daniel's rifle cracked steady and true, dropping 2 of Blackwood's men before they reached the fence line. Kaya fought like a fury, her shots precise and deadly. 3 more of Blackwood's men fell to her alone. But they kept coming. The barricades began to splinter under sustained fire. 2 of the defenders fell and didn't get up. A hay bale caught fire, sending flames licking toward the barn. Through the smoke, Marcus saw the carriage. Ashford was there, watching, safe, untouchable. And then Marcus understood. As long as Ashford lived, this would never end. Even if they won today, he would hire more guns, send more killers, burn more ranches, murder more innocent people. The snake's body could thrash all day, but cut off the head and the body dies. Marcus made his decision. "Tom," he shouted over the gunfire. "Take command. I'm ending this." He vaulted onto his horse and spurred hard. The animal lunged forward, carrying him straight into the heart of the enemy. Bullets whipped past Marcus like angry wasps. One grazed his horse's flank, drawing blood. Another punched through his coat, missing flesh by inches. He didn't slow, didn't flinch, didn't look back. Ahead, the carriage driver saw him coming. The man's eyes went wide with terror. He hauled on the reins, trying to turn the horses, trying to flee. Too late. Marcus cut him off, his horse slamming against the carriage team. Wood cracked. The carriage lurched sideways. Marcus leaped from his saddle onto the carriage step, yanked open the door with his left hand, Colt leveled in his right. Henry Ashford sat inside. He was smaller than Marcus expected, soft, pale, dressed in a tailored suit that cost more than most ranchers earned in a year. His face was the face of a man who had always let others do his fighting, his killing, his dirty work. Now that face was white with terror. "Thornton, wait, we can negotiate. I have money." Marcus grabbed him by the collar and threw him into the dust. The fall knocked the wind out of Ashford. He lay there gasping, expensive suit covered in Arizona dirt, all his money and power suddenly worthless. Marcus pressed the barrel of his Colt against Ashford's forehead. "Call them off. I can't. Blackwood doesn't take orders when blood is up." "Then you'd better find a way." Marcus thumbed back the hammer. The click was loud in the sudden silence around them. "Because in 30 seconds, your brains are going to be decorating this nice suit of yours." Ashford's voice cracked as he screamed, "Blackwood, stand down, stand down! For God's sake, stop!" For a long moment, nothing changed. Gunfire continued. Men kept dying on both sides. Then Blackwood's voice cut through the chaos like a knife. "Hold your fire! Hold!" Slowly, painfully, the shooting stopped. Smoke drifted across the battlefield like the ghosts of the fallen. The wounded groaned. Somewhere a horse screamed its last breath. Blackwood rode forward. His face was twisted with rage, with frustration. His wounded arm hung useless at his side, and blood had soaked through the sling. He was pale from blood loss, swaying slightly in the saddle. "This isn't over," he said. "Yeah, it is." Tom had limped up behind Marcus, blood soaking through the bandage on his leg, Winchester trained on Blackwood's chest. Daniel Miller flanked him on the right, rifle steady. Kaya appeared on the left, her face hard as granite. Blackwood looked at them, looked at his remaining men, barely a dozen, several wounded, all of them shaken. Looked at the bodies scattered across Stone Ridge. The math was simple. Even if he killed Thornton, he'd die seconds later. And Blackwood, for all his cruelty, had always been a survivor first. "Your boss is going to hang," Marcus said. "The documents we have will see to that. You can die here defending a dead man's money, or you can ride away and never show your face in Arizona again." The standoff held for 10 heartbeats. 20. Blackwood spat blood into the dust. "Let's go, boys. This job isn't paying enough to die for." They rode away. The survivors, at least. 8 of Ashford's men lay dead in the Stone Ridge dirt. 3 more wouldn't survive their wounds. Marcus hauled Ashford to his feet. "You're going to sign a confession. Every foreclosure, every bribe, every man you ordered killed, and then you're going to ride with us to Tucson, where the U.S. Marshal will decide what to do with you." "They'll hang me," Ashford whispered. "Probably." Marcus's voice held no sympathy, no satisfaction, only the flat certainty of a man who had seen too much death to take pleasure in more. "Should have thought about that before you started killing innocent people for their land." 3 weeks later, Marcus stood on his porch, watching the sun set over Stone Ridge. The land stretched out before him, scarred by battle but still standing. Fences needed mending. The barn needed a new roof. One of the water troughs had been shot full of holes. Fresh graves dotted the hill behind the house, marked with simple wooden crosses. But it was his. Still his. And no one was going to take it from him. The documents had reached Tucson. Ashford was in federal custody, awaiting trial for fraud, theft, and conspiracy to commit murder. The forged foreclosures had been invalidated. 7 families were getting their land back, including what remained of Kaya's family homestead. Tom limped up beside him, leaning on a cane. His leg would heal, the doctor said. Eventually. He'd always walk with a limp now, but he'd walk. Hell of a fight, Tom said. Hell of a fight, Marcus agreed. They stood in comfortable silence, the silence of men who had bled together, who had faced death together, who didn't need words to fill the space between them. The sky turned from orange to purple to deep indigo. Stars began to appear, one by one, scattered across the darkness, like diamonds on black velvet. Footsteps approached from the barn. Kaya walked toward them, moving with the quiet grace that had become familiar over the past weeks. She'd stayed to help with the wounded, to help rebuild, to help bury the dead. Daniel had already headed back to start clearing their family's land, but Kaya had lingered. The Reverend sent word, she said. He's organizing a memorial service for everyone who fell. Wants to know if you'll speak. Marcus nodded slowly. I'll speak. She hesitated. The setting sun painted her face in shades of gold and copper. I'll be heading back to my family's land soon. Daniel needs help with the rebuilding. There's years of work ahead. I know. The desert wind shifted, carrying the scent of distant rain. The first hint of the monsoon season approaching. New life coming to wash away the blood and dust. Thank you, she said quietly, for everything. For believing me when you had no reason to. For fighting beside me when you could have walked away. Marcus looked at her. Really looked. At the strength in her face, the fire in her eyes, the steel in her spine that had never bent, not even when everything she loved had been taken from her. You ever need help with that rebuilding, he said. You know where to find me. She smiled, the first real smile he'd seen from her, warm and bright and full of something that looked like hope. I know, and maybe when the work slows down, I'll ride back this way. See how Stone Ridge is healing. I'd like that. She held his gaze for a moment longer. Then she turned and walked back toward the barn, her silhouette dark against the fading light. Grandmother Ruth appeared in the doorway behind him, her shadow stretching long across the porch boards. She's a good woman, Ruth said. She is. Strong, brave, the kind who doesn't break when the storm hits. I noticed. You going to do something about that? Marcus almost smiled. Almost. Maybe. When the time's right, Ruth snorted. You Thornton men, stubborn as mules, every last one of you. Don't wait too long. Life's shorter than you think. I've buried enough young men to know that. She went back inside. The screen door banged shut behind her. Marcus stayed on the porch, watching the last light fade over his land. Stone Ridge had survived. His people had survived. The documents were in the hands of justice. The man who had tried to destroy them was behind bars. And tomorrow there would be more work to do. Fences to mend, cattle to tend, a life to rebuild. The stars wheeled overhead, ancient and unchanging. The same stars his grandfather had watched from this same porch. The same stars his children might watch someday if he was lucky enough to have them. That was enough. For now, that was enough.